Thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Heather Hardy and I'm the coordinator of our Dhillon School of Business Student Professional Development Program. Thank you all so much for joining here today. As we get started here, just going to kick it off by introducing Ashley. Today we're going to obviously have a little bit of an interactive program, so feel free, turn on your cameras, you'll be able to engage. You can use your microphone, use the chat box, however you're most comfortable to engage with us today. So today's workshop fits into the Get Ready for Job Fair series that our careers department is holding. If you're not aware of that series, go check it out on the My Experience portal. You'll see that you need to take 7 of the various workshops that are offered throughout the series, and that's going to give you a certificate at the end and lead up to our job fair that's coming up on February 10th. So if you aren't aware of the job fair, mark your calendar, super important. Networking, figuring out what those future careers are, utmost important. So please do take advantage of that today. But obviously, why are we here today? So we're going to be talking all about building your personal brand and your professional network on LinkedIn. So today we have Ashley Mayhew. He is the relationship manager at LinkedIn Talent Solutions. So how cool is that? Somebody from LinkedIn teaching us all about LinkedIn. So as for Ashley, after graduating with a Master's of Industrial Relations and Human Resources from the University of Toronto, Ashley's professional experience has spanned from small tech startups to one of the largest banks in North America. With a diverse range of experience in human resources, brand, communications, and technologies, her current role as relationship manager is to support and consult Canadian clients on how to best evolve their talent strategies using LinkedIn solutions. Ashley is particularly passionate about developing company brands through ambassadorship and employee storytelling. In her spare time, she is the committee co-chair of Women at LinkedIn and Province Healthcare e-philanthropy team, as well as runs professional branding workshops for new graduates. So very cool. So thank you so much for being with us here today, Ashley. To get things started, I'm going to launch a poll for everyone. So we want to find out a little bit about you. So this first one is asking you, do you have a LinkedIn account? So we're wondering, you're here today, do you have an account or is this all brand new? Let me give it a couple more seconds here. Oh, it's looking good. Most people have one, Ashley.
Excellent.
All right, I'll just end that and launch the results. So it looks like we have 79% of participants here today have a LinkedIn workshop, have a LinkedIn profile. So good start, everyone. 21% do not. For those of you that don't, I'm sure after today, you are definitely going to want to get one. And second poll here, if you have LinkedIn, what are you using LinkedIn for? So are you using it to showcase your resume? Are you using it to connect with people? For that job searching, reading articles? You kind of created that profile and you don't really use it, or you're doing something else completely. Maybe a couple more seconds here. It looks like we're all in. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share that. So as everybody can see there, it looks like most people, 43% are using it to connect with people. 39%, it looks like they created that profile and they're just not really doing anything. So Ashley, we need some help. What do they do with that profile after they have it? Some are using it just to showcase their resume, others reading articles, and some doing something else. Thank you all for indulging us with your insights there. Ashley, from here, I'm going to turn it over to you. Can tell us all about LinkedIn and help those students that maybe don't know what they're doing with that profile.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I'm excited to be here. It's a topic I'm very passionate about because as well as helping company develop their brands, I like to chat with students just like I was once upon a time looking for a job and help them build their personal brand because whether you like it or whether you don't, you have a brand associated to you. When someone leaves the room, they're going to have an assessment or an opinion or an experience from interacting with you, whether that's a digital or virtual room, whether that's a physical room, whether it's an email you send in your future role or any interaction, our brand comes out and comes through that. And so what I'm going to do today is even take a step back from our LinkedIn profile and networking. We're going to get to that. But what we really need to start with is talking about our personal brand and what is a personal brand. And I'm going to share my screen. So give me a thumbs up when we can see my slide deck, because I'm going to walk through and tell you a little bit about LinkedIn specifically before we go through all those other pieces. So as mentioned, we're going to talk about LinkedIn. We're going to define our personal/professional brand, and then we're going to talk about our profiles, building our profiles, how our personal brand comes through, and all those other elements, and then the importance of networking. So this is a personal story about myself. Data point that's interesting, 50% plus. So more than half of the hires results on LinkedIn from personal connections. So from people connecting people to opportunity. And that's exactly what LinkedIn's mission is. LinkedIn's mission is to take people, take skill sets that are mapped on their LinkedIn profiles, match them to opportunities, and match companies with people who need to hire. They need to hire. So my experience after graduating U of T, I didn't really know what the heck I wanted to do. And I started looking around at the things I liked a lot. I liked building websites. I loved working on social media platforms. And so out of my undergrad, I became an online marketing specialist for a very small startup at the time. They barely just had a logo. So I got to get my hands dirty and create a lot of cool stuff, help build their brand. From there, I started a role at TD Bank that was really specific. It was this hybrid between HR and social media. So it was pretty cool because I got to use my master's degree in HR. It meant something because I found a role in my field, and I got to leverage my marketing experience. Now, I didn't just trip or happen to fall into that role. I met the head of talent acquisition. I applied. I went through hoops and loops and networked my way to finally finding the right role for me, where when the role appeared, they actually tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, this role sounds perfect for you and your skill set. It took a lot of networking, a lot of hard work to get there, though. And I had multiple roles at TD. The reason I had multiple roles at TD is because I didn't stop networking. Once I did have my professional job that I was looking for on Bay Street, I still had to continue to network to find out what are the other opportunities that excite me within TD, and where do I see myself landing. And so people were the connection point to getting on different teams, to exploring different avenues. And then that brings me to, and you'll see above each of my roles, I am very passionate about volunteering. So I volunteered for a children's charity called Day Trippers for many years. I'm now on the Providence Healthcare Board and part of co-chairing Women at LinkedIn. And why is this so important? Well, volunteer is a great way to network. It's a great way to meet people who are executive level board members of these volunteer organizations. It's a great way to meet peers that work at different organizations as well. And it helps me build my leadership and skill sets that I'm interested in building for my next role. So it brings us to LinkedIn. I joined LinkedIn 2 years ago, and I was very passionate about what I did. I helped people build their brand on LinkedIn. So I was helping them with marketing campaigns on LinkedIn, different companies. And it was a wonderful job. It was one of my favorite roles I ever had. And then last August, LinkedIn did a reorg. I lost my job. I was told, with a master's degree, many years of experience in my field, and being one of the top performers to the point where I was actually given bonuses over and above accreditations. We call it club qualifiers, big awards, big excitement, best year of my career, actually, from a performance perspective. And I was let go. I was told on July 21st that you no longer have a job at LinkedIn. We're going to help you. And they're very, very supportive as a company, giving us a laptop, setting us up for all the right things to start looking for what we call our next play. And funny enough, after joining LinkedIn, getting promoted, and losing my job, I actually found another role at LinkedIn 2 months later. So I boomeranged back. But what's the point of this story is that post you see in the bottom left, I put on LinkedIn. And you'll see that there were 91,000 views on that LinkedIn post. And what does that really mean? So I posted that my role was eliminated. And this is the post right after that, but I posted my role was eliminated. And I had hundreds of people throughout my career, friends, family, people that I might not have been able to text or call personally, that reached out to me with job opportunities, with conversations they wanted to set me up on, with individuals reaching out saying, hey, I know this person who's hiring there and hiring. And it just was so overwhelming. The joy of losing my job was one of the strangest experiences I ever went through my entire life. I thought I would be miserable, not getting out of bed, especially in COVID, and wearing my sweatpants. But with the network that I had and the overwhelming support and my guts and grit to actually post out there, hey, I lost my job and I'm not going to be embarrassed by it. The overwhelming support actually got me so excited and energized with the possibilities and the opportunities out there. And I was having conversations with big brands across Canada about potentially working with them. Brands that I'm still thinking about working for in the future, who've extended their, their phone, their Zoom link and said, let's have a chat. And the people that came out of day trippers that I worked with, and volunteered with years ago, and even people who were consultants at ET Group reached out to me. So this whole career and this web of network was really what helped me take a terrible, terrible moment in my life and see it in such a positive, amazing opportunity. And the power of this is really behind thinking about your career, not just as one linear line to get to, paying your student loans off, but it's about thinking about your career as things you're passionate about, working with people you're passionate about, and continuing to build your network. And if we don't continue to build our network, even after we have a job and we secure our job, there's no way that the day that we might get that awful email or that conversation happens, that it turns into something so overwhelmingly positive. Literally gave me goosebumps, the amount of support and love that I got from people I haven't spoke to in years. So how do we do that? Where do we start when we don't really feel like we have a network right now? And why is LinkedIn one of the most important places to be thinking about? So let's start talking about LinkedIn specifically. So what do you do on other social media? Facebook, for example, you talk about the things you like. Snapchat's like, watch me eat my donut. Here's a cool picture of my fancy donut that I got at some boutique. Here's the recipe of a donut, how I make donuts at home. Talking about Pinterest, I'm listening to the song Donuts. You get the idea. There's different reasons for different platforms. They all have a purpose. They're all very important, but the purpose is very different. Now, when we think of ourselves on LinkedIn, it's the professional mindset. It's taking that donut and it's pivoting it into, I want to operate a donut franchise one day. I'm looking for a job at a donut company. I am a sprinkle specialist. There's literally such thing as that. I've seen roles on LinkedIn and have had to help clients with people who taste test, which is an amazing job. There's very few of them though, so I don't recommend. I have 3 years in donut making experience. My top skills are baking or donut production. You get the idea, right? It's pivoting, it's taking your passion and it's putting an element of professional mindset to it. And so I'm not telling you, on LinkedIn, we don't talk about donuts. We talk about donuts, but we talk about them in a very, very different light, in a very different way. And why is it so important that we think about sharing with the world our passions or what we're interested in doing and what our experience and skill sets are? Because there's over 30 million employers on LinkedIn with over 20 million job opportunities. There's no other professional network globally like LinkedIn. And 2.8 individuals are sitting on a computer just like we are now, searching for people with talent and keyword searches and skill sets and experience to hire. 2.8 million recruiters are sitting right now looking to fill jobs every single day. And so what does this really mean? LinkedIn, our mission is to create economic opportunity, as I mentioned, for the global workforce. And how do we visualize this workforce, or how do we visualize this map? It's called the economic graph. And so LinkedIn is building out the first ever economic graph globally. We have 706 million members. We have 55 million companies, 11 million jobs, 36,000 skill sets that we capture and we record, and 90,000 schools. So if we think of the pandemic and the shift that's happened with remote work, the way that we network, the way that we connect, we can no longer do that face-to-face. And the power of a social tool that actually is trying to map all opportunities and people out there in the world to be able to connect them to their future career, future role, as well as companies to make sure that they can still operate and run because they have the right skill sets to do the jobs that they need to do. It's super powerful. So I hope months from now, everyone says on that poll, they have their LinkedIn profile, they're using their LinkedIn profile, and they spend more time there than they do scrolling aimlessly through Instagram. And don't get me wrong, I do it all day too. I love checking out my Instagram. I love posting pictures. But your career is the most important assignment of your life. And if you're at school right now and you like to check the box and get that B+ to A+, and that makes you feel really, really good, the question you have to ask yourself is, no one's going to grade you on your career. No one's going to grade you on how well you network, but those things are tremendously more important than any of the grades that you get right now in school. Now, that's not me giving advice like don't pass. That's of course not the advice I'm giving you. My advice is that I was an academic. I loved school. I wanted to stay in school as long as possible. That's why I did my master's, because I was good at it and it felt good when I was good at it. That's the kind of psychological reward I gave myself. But I didn't really understand how to network. I didn't really understand, like, it was this intangible thing of like, oh, I know I have to figure out how to get a job and how to connect with people. And I know jobs are important and a career is important and I have to make money one day. But I needed a rubric. I needed that academic style or approach of this is what success looks like. This is what success doesn't look like. I needed a path. I needed a syllabus that said, these are the 4 things you need to do in order to get your assignment completed. You don't have that direction whenever you're at a job. You don't have that direction about your career. So you need to create that structure. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to walk through what that structure should look like, or at least a framework for you to begin with. So step 1 of the structure. Step 1 is defining your personal brand. Imagine right now I just gave you all the keys to your own company, your own organization, and it's called Andrew & Co. I just saw someone's name on Andrew. You now have your own corporation. It's Andrew & Co. And you need to go out and sell Andrew & Co. Every single one of us do when we're looking for a job, regardless if it's our first job or second job. If I just lost my job and I was looking for another one, we need to sell our value. And what does that really mean? Well, what that means is when I look at resumes and I see people have all graduated from the same program and they all have experience using Excel, Word, and great communication skills, of course, they all start to blur together. They all start to sound very similar, the same. The resume, the LinkedIn profile, whatever you have built to date, it all starts to sound like any other peer graduating. So that poses a challenge on us. We're not skilled in, and we're not often taught in, how to sell ourselves as if we're our own company. If we're a product or something that we want someone to buy or use as part of their team, I use my skill set as part of your team. We have to sell our skill set. We have to show why we're the best fit. And what that really looks like is defining your personal value. And your personal value add is highly correlated to every little teensy bit that makes you. And so if you're excellent at being creative and drawing, and you are passionate about leading a team, and you just learned how to code, maybe a Scrum Master is a great role for you because you understand user experience really, really well. And you have a side of coding where you could lead a group of engineers and you're a visionary. So don't lose parts of you as you think about your personal brand. If you're a parent, that's part of your personal brand. You're a leader every single day. You have to rally people who don't want to do anything that you tell them to do and try and convince them. That's a skill set. And so I think sometimes people come to me and they're like, I don't have any skills. I've barely been in the workforce and, that's it. And I'm like, okay, so what do you do in your spare time? Oh, well, I like to learn different languages. Okay, so you're multilingual. Yeah. Okay, and what else do you do? Well, I play soccer. I play in a rep league. Okay, so you've just told me that you're a leader on your rep soccer team, that you have a skill set where you work very, very hard to achieve your goals, and that you can learn languages and could be bilingual in multiple different countries. So it's like, I think sometimes we narrow ourselves into these or pigeonhole ourselves into these, we don't have much to tell or a story to tell. And it's really important that we do some self-reflection and dig deep to answer the question, how do I add value on a team? Any team. Don't think about working. Don't think about a workplace or a project even. Just think about, how do I add value to a team? I like to set up our family gatherings. I am the glue to my family. Thanksgiving dinner, I'm going to tell everyone what we're having. I'm going to be the one who decides where we're having it. I'm the person that rallies everyone together. That has nothing to do with my job, but that's a skill set that I totally apply to my job. I rally everybody together, get them excited about an idea. I sell my ideas really, really well and get people to collaborate. That's my leadership style. That doesn't just happen in one place or one room. That's me. And so when we talk about authentic branding, this kind of self-reflection to understand what value you add and your skill sets is what's going to be that power in your pitch and your elevator conversation that you have in any networking conversation in the future, the way that your resume presents, the way that your LinkedIn profile presents. It has to be that deep and that authentic. And we're not very good at self-reflection. So step 1 or challenge 1 is we need to self-reflect. We need to ask those questions. How do I add value? Why would I bring value to a team? What kind of things or skill sets or experiences do I have? that would make me uniquely bring value to a group or team? I'm going to pause there because that's a lot. We're now giving each of you a company and you have to brand yourself. That's overwhelming. Do we have any questions or thoughts so far? And have people tried to do any exercises like this in the past? I did this in school once. So people who are highly, highly structured and they're like, oh, I need like even more detail. How do I do this? This was a very cool assignment. I had to ask 3 friends, three people in my family, 3 people that I didn't work with and that weren't friends and family, and 3 people who I have had a colleague or working relationship with. And I had to ask them to share 3 words that they would use to describe me and tell me in 2 sentences why they would use that word to describe me. Then you collect, so 3 times however many groups I just mentioned, and you have a word cloud of what people's perception is of you. That's a brand perception right there. That's your brand. And then I bucketed those words up because usually, someone would say, you're really trustworthy, and someone would say you're loyal. So, okay, loyalty is something that I'm going to use as one of my brand perception words. And then why am I loyal? And I'd look deeper in the stories, then all those stories bucketed would explain the experiences they had with me or my skill set as to why they would say I'm loyal. And so if you're having a really hard time doing the self-reflection, do that assignment for yourself. Help start shaping your personal brand through the eyes of others and the perception that they give, right? Like maybe they'll even say something like you're quiet and you're like, oh my God, how am I going to sell the fact that I'm quiet to somebody that was looking for I don't know, an HR generalist. But quiet, well, why do you think I'm quiet? And then you read the story and it's like, well, you're very pensive. You think before acting. You're very articulate in the words that you use. So even when people say, what are pros and cons in an interview that you have to share, this is the data or the information, that anecdotal feedback that you can use when you're trying to answer those questions. So it helps you tremendously, not even just defining your brand and starting to articulate that on your resume and every activity that you do in job search, but it also helps you answer those interview questions with some confidence, with some clarity. Like you did an assignment to define who you are in your words and in the words of others. So some people ask me, what is a brand? And we alluded to this a little bit already, but a brand is a collection of perceptions. So I often ask people, which coffee would they prefer? And some people are like, I prefer the right, which surprises me because I totally want all that whipped cream. But they have a reason for it. It's because their buildup of the perception of that brand is, well, it's expensive, it's overrated, the coffee's not usually that great. And when I get a good percolated coffee in an old school cup, it's usually bang on, real stiff, and I love it. So it's funny how perception, regardless of whatever brand you built, is how we identify either like or dislike or trust or distrust. All of these perceptions create brand. Brand is born of experience and it reflects the reputation. And so when I told you about that assignment I did in school and why you should do that, collecting the experience that you provide people in your day-to-day interactions is how you can easily define your brand. And it's their perception of you. So it's a great exercise because sometimes self-reflection can be very hard and frustrating. I still recommend that you do write down a few things that you think of yourself, but asking others what their experience with you and what your reputation is to them, even if it's family and friends and a few colleagues, can be extremely helpful. And so at the beginning of the session, I said brand is what people say about you when you leave the room. Brand happens regardless of if you manage your brand or if you don't manage your brand. And so Jeff Bezos said this, who built, the biggest brand in the world, arguably, in the last 20 something years. And so whether you want to have a brand or don't want to have a brand isn't really the question. The question is, how much time are you spending on managing this brand or thinking about your brand, articulating it intelligently to put your best foot forward with employers is more the question. So the next piece of it is, when you have a brand, you want to start taking that brand. And what I mean by a brand is when you are clear about how you add value, you then want to execute your brand. You want to build it out on your resume. You want to build it out on your LinkedIn profile. Your bio might speak more in detail to who you are and what you actually would add value to authentically, rather than, I'm a student looking for full-time employment come graduation day, blah, blah, blah. How many people have probably said that? Many people. But are you specific about the types of organizations you'd like to work for, about the culture that you would see yourself fitting into? How many levels deeper can you get around the who you are, what your brand has to offer a company, and what you're most interested in? So the next piece of executing on your brand is building out that profile to show off these kind of value adds that you've come up with through either personal reflection or working with people in your life. And the key to that is to differentiate yourself. So again, we don't want to sound like every other person that's graduated from the program. So let's talk about really good detailed skills that we have or experiences that we have that can speak to that. And I can dive into, now if we're executing on our brand, what does that look like in a profile setting, for example? So profile A versus profile B. If you're a recruiter, who would you speak to first? If you only have 10 minutes in a day to have a phone call, who are you going to talk to?
B.
Exactly. And why are we going to talk to B over A? That's not a trick question. It's easy. You could pretty much name anything right now.
Yes, she has all of the information like experience and her bio, and also her interest and what is her aspiration. So
Exactly. It's clear her brand is coming through, right? And she's showing off a great professional photo of herself. She's smiling. She looks like someone I'd want to talk to. She's inviting to have a conversation. She's very clear, like you said, about what she's aspiring to do. She's an aspiring lawyer. She wants to make change. Maybe the International labor organization would be a great place for her because change making and policy along with a law degree is a great place to work. So people that are in these organizations can start visualizing. Brand and finding a job is so much about human psychology. So looking on the person to the left and the person on to the right, I'd want to hire the person on the right over the left just right away because this person puts effort into their career. They're showing that like, hi, I'm a approachable person. I know my career aspirations, what I'm interested in doing, and what I have to offer. She also shares that she's a competitive swim. She's on the competitive swim team. I know she can be a team player if she's on the competitive swimming team. It's already telling me things about this human that would make me be able to start thinking about where does she fit potentially in this organization or in what role. And so the more we're able to show off who we are, what we do authentically, the more likely we are to be matched or be able to be helped by either recruiters or people within your network, because it's more clear about where you want to go and what you want to do. And so when I say where you want to go and what you want to do, that doesn't mean you have to know the job title today that you want to have, because, everyone knows that a social media specialist didn't exist 25 years ago. There was no social media platform. So my role, I couldn't have graduated and said, you know what, I'm going to work for a social media company and I can't wait for that day to happen. But I knew what I was passionate about. I knew I liked user experience. I liked marketing. I liked graphic designing. I was on the yearbook committee whenever I was a kid because I wanted to be able to get my hands on Adobe Photoshop for anything. So being thoughtful about what you're most interested in and are excited for in general will help place you. Let's take the HR function, for example. HR has compensation and benefits, numbers. It has wellness, diversity and inclusion. It has recruitment, which is kind of more like sales. So say you were a person on a sales floor at one point, whether it was a retail shop, and someone's like, yeah, okay, so where would you want to work in a large corporation? It's like, well, I mean, I love selling. I don't want to have a quota, but I could see myself selling a company and being a recruiter and working on a team of people that are trying to fill roles. So all of your skill sets can overlap to roles or to opportunities that make sense for you based on your passions. So really do think about your passions. And that doesn't mean, I like drawing, therefore I'm only going to take a job that requires me to draw all day. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about competencies, skills that you have that overlay other things that organizations are looking for and finding those overlays. So a great photo is really, really important. Why? Because you're 12 times more likely to be viewed and 9 times more likely to actually have people accept connections. Everyone has a friend with a phone or a phone in their hands with a decent enough camera to take a headshot. You don't need something glamorous where you pay someone or, they have some sort of lens on it. No, use a phone, make sure you look approachable. Some cultures, smiling isn't for them. That's fine. Just make sure that, you're taking a photo where someone can see that you're putting your brand out there, that you're working on making sure that you can network with others and that you have a friendly expression is what I would recommend. So editing your profile. So those who don't have a profile, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because these are things that at our age and your age, we're pretty digitally savvy. We were all born with this technology at our fingertips. So I'm sure building a profile isn't going to be new, as you probably have one on 10 other social sites. So editing your profile, things to keep in mind though that are LinkedIn specific. Edit using the location and industry that you want to work in. This is important when you don't already have one. So if you're looking to work in a specific industry, i.e. finance, make sure that that's how you put your descriptor. If you're looking to move out of town for a job or move back home, I know the pandemic makes it very strange right now, but think about the location you want people to know that you will be working in so that the recruiters that are looking for those people in those locations are going to be looking for you. Your headline and your work experience. So keep in mind that this is all AI driven. This is all driven by keyword searches and people on the other end who are looking, i.e. recruiters looking for folks like you, and that they will put in keywords or skill sets that they are trying to match to. And so the more thoughtful you are about where you want to go and what you want to do, the more likely you are to have keywords that then align to the recruiters that they're looking for. Now, like I said, you don't start your career journey knowing exactly what you want to do. So it's like, well, how do I do this? It's the chicken and the egg. It seems so confusing. So start with at least finding, I'd say 10 organizations you're interested in working for. Follow them on LinkedIn. Start creeping their jobs, start creeping the recruiters and what they post. This is the second part of your overall assignment. Part 1, build my brand, reflect, whether it's with people or by myself, figure out how I add value. Step 2 is executing on my brand. So building your resume, building your profile. Part of building your LinkedIn resume is going to be doing some research on the companies you want to work for. And how we do our research is, again, kind of like the chicken and the egg. Well, I can do some Googling, but how do I really know what it's like to work there? And I don't want to accept a job somewhere, get stuck and be like, oh my God, this is not for me. No way. So what you're going to want to do is, as you're doing your research and building out your profile, and these things have to come kind of symbiotic and together, you should have a rule of 3. Try and meet 3 people a part of every single organization that you're interested in working for. You should try and first, so level 1, if we're thinking about this like a video game, level 1 is meeting someone around your age in a job that you're kind of interested in, and even maybe a friend of a family member who's in that organization who's going to give you the scoop. They're going to let you know what it's really like. They're not a hiring manager or recruiter. They're not telling you, come over here, the grass is greener, it's the best place to work. This is because they obviously feel that way if they're recruiting for the company or they're a leader at that company, but you need to understand if it aligns to your values. So find someone who's going to give you the ins and the outs of this is what it's actually like to work there. And in some cases, you're going to have to cold email people or cold in-mail people. And you're going to have to say, hi, I'm doing some research. I'm really interested in working for TD Bank. And I was wondering if you could volunteer 30 minutes of your time in the next month to give me an informational interview about how you got your role there and what it's like to work there and the culture. It's as easy as that. It doesn't need to be scary. And the worst thing that can happen is they say no. We have to get over that fear. We have to get over that fear. And the rejection part, move on. Who cares? If they say no or they say nothing at all, is that really the worst thing that could happen? That's not so bad. So we got to put ourselves out there. We got to start asking people to help us with this information. It's like a big research project. You can't do one Google search and be like, okay, I have all the research I need for my essay. I'm done. I'm just going to write it up right now. And if you are doing that and you're passing, then kudos to you, because I could not get it done that quickly. But I think what the point is that you're going to be building this profile out, and it's an evolution. It's not like I build it out one and done and then, okay, I'm done. I'm going to turn this off and that's it. This is an evolution of doing your research and adding to your profile, getting more specific. I'm now in, role 10 of my career, and I now know exactly which companies I'd work for. There's a list of 5 in Canada that I'd work for, and I'm allowed to be pickier now because I have years of experience under my belt. I also know what types of leaders I'd want to work for, what their makeup is, what kind of attitude they have, their style, because I now know how I'm best motivated. And all of that comes from trial and error. Some roles I hated, some roles I love. And so my brand evolves. My top 5, 10 companies that I'd work for evolves and changes. My profile changes to speak to the people at those organizations. And the value add that I bring has evolved and changed over time. And so this is a working project. We don't have a done date, but it's important to be doing things simultaneously. We can't just say, okay, I'm going to enter all this data into my profile and that's it. There's work to be done on figuring out what companies you want to work for. And once we know what companies you want to work for, start being more specific in your headline, or in your bio, saying things like, I'm looking to work for a fintech company that specializes in XYZ. And so make sure when you think about editing your profile and your headline that it's an opportunity to show who you are as well as what you do. And so you'll see some are like super creative and crazy. I don't recommend making it so hard to understand what exactly you mean by it, but present yourself in 2 lights, what you're doing or what you're aspiring to do and who you are. And that's really what good personal branding looks like. Here's some questions to think about as it regards to other people taking a look at your profile. So your summary. It shouldn't be very long. This is your bio right on your front page. It shouldn't be very long. Keep it concise. You can only see like 40 something of the first words, and then you have to say, read more. I guarantee you recruiters are not going to be clicking read more unless you're an executive or an influencer of some kind. So make sure that that's tight, concise. And if it's the only thing people get to see, imagine you're like building a web page for your company. That's what your LinkedIn profile is. And you're trying to sell them. That first line should be the hook. That should be like the winning sentence of your essay that you spend a long time editing and perfecting, that intro or that line that really goes, oh, okay, I want to read the rest of this. And so if we don't hook people there, it becomes really, really hard to make sure that they're sinking their teeth into the rest of the data on our page. Excuse me. The other thing that you want to think about too on your resume is what's at the very top of it. Do you have a list of skills that sound very similar to other people's? Is it punchy and you're outlining, this is who I am, this is what I want to do, and this is my resume outlining kind of all of those pieces? People are human. If we don't make things interesting for them to read, they won't read it. It doesn't matter even if it's their job, they won't read it. And so we want to make sure that we are advertising our best selves, leveraging the tools at our disposal, whether it's a resume, your profile, or anything else really. Like my Twitter handle and bio are highly correlated to what I do at work, because that's what I post about and that's what I'm interested in. And so making all these pieces kind of work for your work together is important. The other piece is Facebook, Instagram, all these other social tools. We have to think about how they reflect our brand as well, even though they're not things that recruiters might necessarily be looking at. There are companies I've heard in the past who will check out other social profiles. So making sure that either you have them protected so people can't see, your party on Friday night, unless you want them to see that, depends on what field you're going into. I know Barstool Sports is a content creator that would love to see how you partied on Friday night for the jobs that they're hiring for, but others are not going to be so interested. So make sure that you are reflecting your brand or executing your brand on all social platforms. I've changed my last name on Facebook. There's nothing that I'm really hiding there. I have some colleagues, but I just want some colleagues there and some colleagues not. The ones who I go out for a beer with, yeah, sure. The ones that don't know me yet, maybe not. My Instagram is open, for example, because art and expression and branding is really important to me. And so I actually allow anyone to see my Instagram profile, and it's part of me wanting to build brands and show how I build my own brand. So, and it's more artistic, and it's something that I hold near and dear to my heart is photography. So these are all pieces, and that's actually on my resume as well. So these are all pieces and different reasons for why I have open and closed profiles elsewhere, and they still all reflect who I am as a person and what I'm passionate about. So privacy settings. This is something you're going to want to read through carefully. Everyone has different opinions of what privacy means to them and what's important to them, but I just wanted you to call this out, that it is something that you should be considering. as well as, you want to turn off notifying your network. There's a little toggle right on the homepage of your profile. If you're going to be making edits and edits ongoing for the next little while, which I'm sure you will over the next 6 months, turn off the notification where it sends it out to your entire feed, because that's something you don't want in your entire news network to say, or in your entire news feed to say, hey network, I am, adding this to my profile, and tomorrow I'm editing that to my profile, and then I've changed my headline 3 times. So turning that off as you make this evolution or edit, it's going to take a while to get your profile to a place where you probably don't have to touch it for a few months, maybe even 6 months. So it's a good time to do that ahead of when you're starting to make those edits and those changes. So we do our self-reflection. We understand how we add value now. We feel confident in how we add value. We can speak a little bit more about it. We've written it down because we've had to edit our profiles. We've had to edit our resume. Now it's going back to that conversation about networking and that rule of 3. I said rule 1 is finding someone who's your pal, who's your buddy, who can give you the inside scoop. Very, very important. Then when you meet that individual as a first degree connection, you're going to want to ask them, hey, do you know anyone in the sales department? Because I want to get a job in the sales department. Do you have any network or relationship with someone there? Do you think you could connect me to speak to them and learn more about their job? And from there, doing research on who are the hiring managers in that group, asking the person in sales, so who are the sales hiring managers? And are there any vacancies right now or upcoming vacancies that you know about? And could you explain to me how you found your role or how you got to where you are? And so doing this kind of investigative journalist activity is what I call it. You have to do your research on each organization. So I love to think back when I first interviewed at TD, I kind of showed up being like, yeah, I want to work in HR. And there's probably like one HR team and they're all on the HR team. And yeah, I'm excited to work in an HR team that, I got my master's in HR. That's pretty much all I knew at first. And it wasn't until tons of interviews, conversations, and networking that I had to do. And I was like, oh my God, the HR function is like 800 people big. And they have 1 million teams, 1 million hiring managers. They have a team for talent management, for talent acquisition. And within talent acquisition, they had segmented teams. And I was just like totally overwhelmed. I was drawing a picture literally to try and keep it all straight. But that's the level of detail that you're going to want to go into to go to an interview and have a leg up above anyone else when you say, yeah, okay, so I'm interested in the learning development team. And I understand that Helen leads that team. And I understand that, these are the type of entry level positions. Think of how much more of a position you have speaking that way in detail about the organizational structure and the knowledge you have. That's an A+ essay. That's an A+ assignment. Someone who comes in like I did at first and was like, I am excited to be part of the HR team. That's about it. Well, I didn't get the first role I applied to at TD, and rightfully so. I didn't have my stuff together. And so you have to think of putting your best foot forward in these interviews or in these conversations, or even getting to the interview stage by making sure that you've done your research and your homework. And no one's going to hold you accountable except for yourself. And that's what makes building your career and finding a job the hardest thing. There's nobody sitting there giving you an A or a B. There's nobody sitting there saying, this is the syllabus. This is what success or failure looks like. So it's important that we hold ourselves accountable. And that was something that was hard for me because I like structure. And naturally, as you continue to build your network of the different organizations you want to work for, you find somebody who will give you the scoop, somebody who could potentially be hiring in the future, and reaching out to recruiters so they at least know your name and you can eventually get into the ATS. What's an ATS? Applicant tracking system. Almost every organization has one. And so what an applicant tracking system does is they take your resume, and similar to the way LinkedIn, we look at keyword search. This is why resumes are still important. It either puts your LinkedIn resume or your LinkedIn profile, or your resume into that applicant tracking system. It then searches those keywords ongoingly as roles pop up, and it will recommend, hey, you interviewed this person 6 months ago. Here's their resume, and it matches this role, Mr., Mrs., they recruiter that is applying or that is looking for individuals. And then they might dig you up after and say, hey, yeah, this person sounds like they have the right skill set. Oh, and look, they interviewed us or had a phone screening call 2 years ago, or that seems very long, 2 months ago, and it went pretty well. We were interested in them. The role ended up going to someone with more years of experience. That's okay. This is a little bit more junior. This is probably a better fit. You don't just apply to a job, get a call back, go through the screening process, go to an interview, and that's it. It's never that beautiful of a linear story, ever. I will bet anyone that you know that has a job that you want never got their job that way. It was probably through a person who then told them to apply. Then they applied, then they went through all those steps and interviewed and whatnot. And in some cases, they got told, yeah, I mean, we really want to hire you. We just don't have the position right now for you. And then get a call back 6 months. In my case at LinkedIn, I was working at TD for a year before I got my call back to say, hey, the role we were thinking for you finally opened up. I waited 12 months from the time that I met with the hiring manager for this role, the person making the decision of who to hire for, 12 months before I got a call back saying the role's actually open now. So of course they interviewed other people. Did I have a leg up in that competition? Absolutely. I already made a personal relationship and connection and had coffee twice with the hiring manager. I met the person in the role 5 times before I got that job. And this is really how people get a job. It's not sitting back behind their profile hoping someone's going to reach out to them. It's not cold resume throwing left, right, and center to see what's going to stick against a wall. It's through people. It's through your network. It's through connections. So if you have 10 companies and you have to meet 3 people at each of those companies you're interested in working at, we have a lot of work cut out for you. We should have started yesterday. And that's not to scare you. This is something that we all should have started yesterday. And so if you can set up a 30-minute chat at least once a week, that is going to put you in a really good position to continue to build your network, not just now, and to find a job. But even once you get into the organization, once I got to TD, it was 85,000 people with an 800-person HR function. I needed to know more people. I didn't even know what was up and what was down or how things got done. And things usually get done, of course, through people. So once I got into TD, then I was setting up a coffee chat with every single person that would lend me an ear for 30 minutes at Starbucks in the Path. And which is the underground in Toronto. So I was underground at Starbucks waiting for my coffee days. And sometimes I'd set up 3 in a row. I'd spend an hour and a half of my lunch hour just meeting person after person after person. What do you do? Who's your boss? How does that work? Do you like it there? And so networking doesn't begin or end with when you get a job, as I mentioned before. And it's even more important once you do have a job to get stuff done efficiently, figure out the inner workings of the cogs of the machine that you're now part of. So I'm going to pause there because that covers, our personal brand, executing our personal brand on different mediums, LinkedIn being one of them, resume building, our talk track for our elevator pitch, interview conversations, and then networking and the rule of 3 around find a hiring manager, find an individual that can give you the scoop, and reach out to recruiters in the organizations that you're most interested in to help you do your research and help get your name at the top of the list. Sometimes you're going to have a recruiter say, please apply through the normal process. That's fine. And just make sure that, you actually have taken the steps necessary to apply to a role if there's an open role. If not, there's some people who are campus recruiters who are much more friendly in lending time. And if you don't have a specific role in mind, we'll discuss it with you. In some cases on LinkedIn, you can even see the recruiter's profile for the job if there's a specific job. So when you're reaching out to recruiters or hiring managers, make sure that you have a specific role that you're going after that they align to. Don't make it someone random. And the individual should help you navigate and do that level 1 research around what's your organizational culture like? Do you like working there? How did you get that job? That's level 1 to all of these organizations. Do that first. Then start looking at jobs that are posted. And as you look at jobs that are posted and you're more clear on your resume and on your profile about what you want to do, then level 2 is reaching out to a hiring manager or recruiter about a specific position. So it looks like we have about 10 minutes left for questions. I don't bite, don't be shy. Once you build a web of contacts, what is your strategy for staying connected to all these people? That's a really good one. So to build your network and then to let it just dry up or stay stagnant is obviously not worth the time or the investment. So to keep up with my contacts, essentially there's a few things that you can do. One, you have to network strategically. We could spend our whole lives in meetings or on Zoom talking to people. So you have to think about your network as, who are the people who are giving me information for right now that were really helpful? And who are the people who are later in my life going to help me find a job? And a lot of that is built on human connection. When you find a mentor and you're like, oh my God, I want this person to mentor me. Those are probably the people along your career that you're going to want to connect with on a regular basis, reach out to them, send them a card over the holiday season, what have you. those are ways that you can kind of keep them warm, so to speak. So reaching out at a very high level. The people who you make a really, really deep connection with and agree to mentor you, you've come up with a contract, like, can you be my mentor and can we work together on a regular basis? Those are the people that you can kind of reach out to once a month, let's say, once a quarter, so every 3 months, depending on their role or position. And others, it's just about, reaching out and saying, hey, do you want to grab a coffee chat? Sometimes once a year. I have some people in my network that I meet for coffee once every 2 years, every 3 years. And it's very clear that that's the kind of relationship we have. But it's essentially more like, who is going to help me to my next step? And if you don't have clarity on what your next step is, I think that's even more important than keeping your entire network warm and available. Now, your entire network, a way that you can keep them warm or keep you top of mind, if we think of ourselves like personal little companies, is posting relevant content, being relevant to the industry those individuals are in, being relevant to the things that you're interested in doing. So when I post out to my network, I think about, I'm the lead of Women at LinkedIn. So when we had our first female VP, that was a pretty rock my socks, tingly historical moment in the US. So I was sharing that with my network, who half of which is from the US, and talking about what this means for women in history and what this means, with International Women's Day around the corner. So speaking about things that are relevant to my passions, what shows off my brand and my unique value add, as well as what I think people in my network are also going to find relatable. So you can do it at scale, we call it, at broad, at large, by sharing content, showing that you're active, showing that you're showing, not telling, that you're experienced in the areas that you say you are in your profile. And then the second part is keeping those mentors close and having a regular cadence with them, and those in-betweeners who are going to help you find a job in the near future but not quite sure where. Keep them part of your medium warm strategy, if you will. So once every 3 months, reach out to them, asking for them for coffee, but making sure that you have reason to, right? Because nobody likes to jump on a call and be like, okay, what are we really here for? Yeah, tips to share content right away. So I would start following people in the organizations and following the companies that you're most interested in and start to see what they're sharing. It will give you an idea of industry conversations. So companies will have company posts and updates on a regular basis. You can even go through and search posts and certain hashtags. So what are things you're passionate about? My example is diversity and inclusion is something I'm passionate about as the leader of Women at LinkedIn. So I actually search the hashtag diversity and inclusion. And then I see what conversations are happening around that, or women in leadership is another one I use, or leadership in general. I find leadership development very interesting. But maybe you're a software engineer, right? And so maybe you want to search something with regards to cybersecurity. I don't know, that sounds super boring to me and over my head in some cases, but you have to follow kind of what your interests are and doing some research in addition to what the companies that you're interested in working for are talking about, because they're probably going to be cutting edge or industry leaders, as well as there's influencers on LinkedIn who share amazing content. So if you just Google top 10 influencers on LinkedIn and take a look at who might be interesting to follow, that's another way to get your hands on some content that might be relevant to you and your network. And just have an opinion, be intelligent about what you post, practice it in a Word document first. I write all my posts in a Word document and then I share it out. That seems tedious, but it spell checks everything for me. I have time to think about if I'm putting my best words out there, and just making sure that it's a sound piece of content, because I like to be very thoughtful about what I post on any of my platforms. A common mistake that people, okay, so the question was, what is the common mistake that people make when networking and what they should avoid? I'm going to give you a poo-poo answer, and then I'm going to give you a specific answer. So the poo-poo answer is there's no mistakes to networking. Don't fear that there's a way to mess something up. Because like I said, rejection, no, I can't take your call, are probably the biggest things or the scariest things that people fear when they're going and putting themselves out there. And the biggest mistake people make when networking, and another piece of the boo-boo answer, is not doing it soon enough. So not thinking about it frequently enough and not doing it soon enough. So if you're applying to a job and you don't know anyone who works at that company, that's a mistake. You didn't network enough to get the right connections to put your best foot forward, or that resume's foot forward into the running of the game. The real answer that I would say mistake with regards to networking is not being specific enough. When you cold reach out to people, let's use that example. When you cold reach out to people, talk about the time commitment that you need from them, what exactly you're looking for, and when you want to have this conversation. Are you interviewing with TD in a week and you want to have a conversation with me about that? I need to know that you need to have it in a week, and I need to know how much time, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, what day. So if you can be extremely specific about why me, how much time do I need to spend, and what you're looking for, it takes the psychology of like, why would I do this? I don't really understand what they're looking for, what is going on. So being specific, when you reach out and network with someone on LinkedIn or ask to be a connection, tell them why. So don't just say, connect with this person. No, say, hi, I saw you today at X and Y speaking event, and I'd love for you to be part of my network. Can I reach out to you in the future? Perfect, specific, on point, I get it. I'm not going to think twice about connecting with you. Same thing should happen when you're reaching out about a meeting. Specific, on point, perfect, I get it. I'm not going to think twice about setting up a meeting with you. So if you take all that ambiguity and like confusion out of it for someone who's really busy in their day-to-day, much more likely to spend the time. And most people want to help. I'm going to be honest with you. The only way I've gotten where I am with my career is kind, helpful people. And yes, I've gotten some no's along the way, but kind, helpful people have helped me get every single job. And even whenever I didn't have a job, we're trying to help me find a job. So my network is definitely what has helped me get to where I am today in every role I've ever had. What about endorsements and recommendations? I love endorsements and recommendations. I highly recommend, like I'm going to ask Heather after this, hey, can you give me a recommendation in terms of, or speak to how I spoke at this event? And they're a great way to show people your skill sets and your experience without telling them. And so is it the only thing people look at? No, not necessarily. But does it reinforce the things that you're trying to sell in terms of your brand and how you add value? Absolutely. And so I have clients, partners, and other colleagues who've shared experience of what it's like to work for me. It's also really great because when you read them, not only do you feel warm and fuzzy, but going back to reflecting on your personal brand and how you've evolved, it helps you think about these experiences and perceptions people have of you, and then articulate them in conversations. When someone's like, what are you good at? And then you've read all of these endorsements that you've gotten or recommendations, you're like, oh, actually, I never thought of myself as good at this, but this is what some people perceive me to be good at. So now I can use that whenever I'm having that conversation. Etiquette around making connections when it's appropriate to request a connection and to send a message and requesting a connection. Always send a message if you don't think it's 100% given. Like if it's your best friend, I don't think you need to send them a message being like, this is why I'm connecting with you on LinkedIn. No, there's no need. But if you don't know the person, they don't know you personally, or they wouldn't recognize your name, i.e. there's 20 something of you and one of me. When someone tries to connect with me after an event like this and I don't know who exactly they are, I have to think about it. I have to be like, where did I potentially meet this person? Did I speak that day? Did I not speak that day? So if you can, like I said, take that lack of clarity out of it and just say, hey, this is why I'm connecting with you. And also like, why? Is it just to be a connection, or is it, I'm interested in the tech industry or anything, like your speak really resonated with me, or your talk really resonated with me. I'd like to speak with you in the future. Anything like that is specific enough. On the LinkedIn profile, who's your target audience? Should it be specific company, job posting, broad approach to the industry you're looking to enter? That is a great question. Even just knowing to think about it like a target audience is already like +1. That's amazing. So like I said, it's an evolution. At the beginning, you're probably going to want to start more broad because you might not have the pick of a litter for entry-level positions, or maybe you do. I don't know everyone's background, but if you don't have your pick of your litter for the entry-level jobs, you're going to want to be thinking about it more industry-wide. So when I first started applying to HR jobs, I was looking for HR generalist positions. I was looking for anything pretty much except for compensation and benefits because I didn't want to do that math. That was just not something that excited me. But what I was really passionate about was marketing, and that was my number one best case scenario avenue or direction. Sometimes you have to take a generalist role, and I knew that, to get into an organization, to then network laterally to get into a role in marketing and social media within HR. That's sometimes the case too. So if there are roles with an exact job title and there's a plethora of them out there, you can be as specific to focus on that role. Like an HR generalist, there's many roles that are considered HR generalists. If your role is very niche or specific and you think you might have to get an entry-level position just to get into the type of organization, you're going to want to think industry or organization specific in terms of your audience. So there's no super easy answer. It depends on the size of the organizations you're going after. Like if you're going after startups, very different vibe to your profile, very different conversations to be having than if you're looking for a Deloitte, KPMG, TD Bank, those kind of organizations. So you're going to have to think high level about what type of place would I be applying to. And it's okay to be both, but if it is both, you have to think about the overlap, what content overlaps. Like fintech is a hot topic that overlaps. Pay through technology. The world of banking is changing month by month, and how we can tap our phone to pay or use our faces to open up our apps in banking. So if you're thinking about any of those industries or any of those passions, it's important to just figure out what the overlap is and the type of organizations you're interested in. I know that's a long-winded answer because it's not perfect until you're very specific about your target audience, i.e. I only want to work for 5 companies and I know those 5 companies and how I would speak to them. The other thing is, when you're looking for a job, is always keep in mind the target audience of a recruiter, regardless of the industry, regardless of the organizations you want to work for. Think of how would a recruiter look at your profile and gain that you have the right experience and values to work for any company. And the way that they think of it is keywords that match up to a job description. So looking at a few different jobs and how they are written, if they're jobs that you're interested in, how they are written and the words they use to describe skill sets, try and copy that on your resume and on your profile to make sure that when a recruiter sees it as a target audience member, they go, yep, bang, bang, boom. They have all the keywords that I need to find to make sure that this person would be applicable, or all the right skills that would make them a good fit. How do you approach creating a network to facilitate entrepreneurship? Really, really great question. So if you want to be that self-made entrepreneur and you're building a business, network is even more important, in my opinion, because you are your own company and co, and you're never going to have a company and co above yours. So it's very similar. You want to think of your personal brand, but your personal brand is probably tied to a product or service as well. And so you're going to want to think, how do those two things have synergies? The more human the brand is, the more likely it is to be easier to network or authentically share. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm passionate about. People will get behind your passion if you are truly excited. You want to think of your network in a few different avenues. So as a small business or entrepreneur, you want to think of, who am I selling to? Who are going to be my partners, whether it's technology partners, whether it's setting up the business partners, whether it's your HR partners, consulting partners. Who are the people that need to help me to get my company to where it needs to be? Who are the people I'm going to be selling to? Who are the people I'm going to be hiring to make this happen? And so I'd say you almost want to network in 3 different bubbles. And then you also want a mentorship bubble. That bubble is going to be really important. Like, who has done what I'm trying to do in the past, whether it's a different product or service? Who has really great brand presence right now? Individuals who have really great brand presence, and how did they build it? And essentially networking with people that will help give you the insights and the knowledge, and sometimes like how they failed fast and pivoted to be successful. I would say those are kind of the different groups of individuals you'd want to network with or for. I hope that answers the question.
Students, does anybody else have another question for Ashley?
Yeah, thanks, Haley. That's nice. I'm glad. I hope it was helpful. I remember being a student, even though I don't remember what year I graduated in. And these are all the things I would have went back and told myself. And these are all challenges that every single human has faced. So whether you're the CEO of a company or whether you're just starting to look out for a job, it's people helping people that get you your role. And every single one of us have been through it. It's not unique, which is why I'm like, why don't we talk more about this? Why don't we focus more on personal branding, networking, building our personal brand externally? We've all had to do it to be where we are, be successful, quote unquote, in our careers. So I think parting words are: define what success means to you, define how you add value, define where you want to work, and use this or treat this like a project. It's a lifetime project, but don't make it daunting, make it exciting, but put structure around it so it helps hold you accountable. Because like I said, no one's grading us on our career. No one's going to make us or force us to send those in-mails or reach out and set up coffee dates. It's up to us.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ashley, and thank you for being here, giving your time to be here today. We're so lucky in virtual land. We got to bring you from Toronto, but not, so that was amazing. This talk was so good. Thank you so much. It really helped to hear your story, students. I hope you learned from that. Like Ashley said, she was in your shoes, and building her LinkedIn profile, building that network is really what got her here today. So really take advantage. You guys have that student card. Use that when you're reaching out to people. Everybody wants to help a student. Make sure you're telling companies you're a student looking to figure out where you could take your career, or whatever it is you're trying to do when you're reaching out. So make sure that you are taking advantage of those opportunities. Ashley's given you guys some great information today about figuring out what your value is, how to then sell that value, how to execute your brand, how to use LinkedIn to help you execute your brand. Do take advantage of all of those opportunities. Get connected. Make sure you're not just building that profile and letting it sit there. Make sure you're using it. And I hope that you found immense value out of this. Thank you again, Ashley. That was fantastic. Students who are here virtually watching live on Facebook, thank you so much for giving your time. I'll formally conclude this, but if anybody does have any questions, do feel free to stick around, ask Ashley those questions. But that'll wrap up the formal portion of this workshop. So thank you so much. Make sure you're looking forward to other workshops. There's lots of different things out there to help you develop and get new skill sets while you're a student. So make sure you check those out. Everything's on the My Experience portal. If you haven't been there, make sure you're going there. Make sure you're building that My Experience transcript. It does actually coincidentally connect to your LinkedIn profile. If you don't know how to do that, send me an email and I can provide some instructions on how you can be highlighting all of those experiential, not for credit pieces that you're doing as a student, to then highlight those on your LinkedIn profile. Those are going to help, especially some of the students that were commenting, what if I don't have any experience to make me relevant for that career? You can then be using these different workshops, different things that you're doing as a student to help make you more employable. So thank you all, and Ashley, thank you again.
My pleasure. And one last piece of advice, connect with each other. Even though we're in a virtual space, share your LinkedIn profile, connect with every single person that joins these events ongoing. And I know this is one of many. So don't forget that each other is also a network. There's many people that were part of my class, graduating class, that helped me get jobs or connected me with people. So start now, right? That was our piece of advice, is wish we started earlier. And don't lose this opportunity and the connectivity of the school in this point in time where you can connect with all these amazing people around you.